Okay, everyone. Well, welcome to Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. My name is Candy Reid. Delighted to welcome in repeat guest Michael Joyce, who is, in my opinion, Michael, and you might blush a little bit, one of the best coaches on the tour, ATP and WTA side. Occasionally,
Thank
I
you.
just think about coaches and players, and when I see the coaching list and tournaments, I'm always interested to see who's working with whom. And whenever I see your name, I always know that the player you're coaching, you're working with, is going to be improving, and regardless of the results, because sometimes it doesn't always work out like that. But I think whenever your name appears, I'm very, very positive that that player you're working with is going to go in the right direction. So a warm welcome and thanks so much for coming back onto the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Candy. I appreciate it.
Well, it's true. I mean, you've worked with the likes of Maria Sharapova, Jessica Pegula, Ashton Kruger, and now Katie Boulter. So let's start with that because you're working now with a Briton who
Yes.
has been such a great player, has just fallen away a little bit. I have to say, last year I commentated on some of her matches, and it seemed like she didn't have an identity that she was really
Sure.
familiar with. So, first of all, how did you get together and what have you been working on?
Yeah, it was actually it was kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, after I worked with Ashland last year, we stopped after the Open, and I didn't really see that coming, so I wasn't actively looking for anybody or whatever. And I spent so much time and effort with Ashland, so it was kind of like I took a couple of months. I was home. I was working with some juniors, and it was kind of nice being home. And I had this one girl in particular, really good American junior girl. And we actually took her to a couple smaller little, 15Ks, just in super nice family. So I was working with her, and then I got it. Obviously, a handful of players reached out to me, but I felt like I put so much effort into Ashland and travel and younger. So I was kind of like, didn't totally have the motivation and energy at first. And then when Katie's agent actually reached out to me first and asked if there'd be any interest there, and said that, Katie, they're looking, she'd been with her coach for a really long time and did an unbelievable job. Biliana. And so it wasn't like Katie had a lot of coaches in her life either. So he was just kind of like,
Yeah.
we were kind of going over some people and felt like, you've worked with players that play similar to Katie and, body type, everything. And so when it was interesting because I had seen her play quite a bit over the last 10 years or 8 years. And I knew kind of how she plays. And I do well with that type of kind of player in the past. And her being 29, and she kind of, has a great team around her that she's had for a long time, which is also a great sign. And so I was interested, and I was even surprised I was interested a little bit. I was like, wow, like I didn't see this coming. And so I decided to give it I went to Spain in early December. It's where she does most of her off season because Alex is there too. And I spent a few weeks with her there. And I mean, she's a lovely girl. And like I said, the team that she has are great. Matt Little, who's a great, trainer, and Rory, her physio, and then she has a sitting partner, Damien, who I got along with great. He's an amazing player. And so it was actually like, I felt like it was a really fun, like 2 weeks, considering you're going with a group you don't really know that well. And obviously we worked hard, and then, I was able to kind of, like you said, I feel like obviously she's a great player. She's had great success before. So a lot of time it's kind of like a new voice comes in and try to help with her identity, and kind of maybe even get back to some basic stuff that, helped her become a great player. And little by little, we got along good. So, I felt like it was a good fit. And then obviously the first tournament was in Auckland, and it's always a little bit different when you go to tournaments. You don't know how you're going to click and playing matches. And so Auckland and Australia was still kind of like a trial. You're always kind of trying, because you could be a great player, great coach, and it just doesn't click, or you could see things differently. But from the beginning, I feel like she was comfortable with the way I felt like she should play and be playing. And she's done it before, so it wasn't like reinventing the wheel. It was just kind of simplifying some things, helping her with her serve. And, she had a lot of injuries last year. And so it's been a pretty good fit so far. And I mean, like I said, she's a really great girl, and the team, we all get along well and have respect for each other, and that makes my life a little bit easier too, because the years with Jesse at the beginning, or Ashlyn, sometimes when they're young and they're starting out, you don't have anybody. It's kind of but yourself, and I'm always the one that kind of has to like kind of try to start bringing a team in, and obviously the some of the people you bring in, if they're going to get, so the fact that Katie had all that in place really made the decision easier for me, and I've been really happy so far.
Very good. I actually know Katie's mum, Sue. I don't really know Katie at all, but Sue Boulter's a
Yeah,
lovely woman. We have a
that's what
really
I
good chat
hear.
actually at last year's US Open. I know Matt Little because I used to train in the same place as him, and he was, of course, the long-time S&C coach of Andy Murray, and he works with
Sure.
loads of other players. And Damian Rodriguez actually saw on the paddle court in
Oh
Cincinnati
yeah,
last year, and
he's
he
a
did
great
come across as
player.
a
He's a
really
really
nice guy. It's
he's a
interesting,
nice
I
guy.
think,
He's a
Michael,
really good player.
to those, yeah. And it's interesting, I think, for those of us sort of outside the scenes of how the coach and player gets together. And you said Katie's agent came to you. When you're coaching players, and this is strange, but you're not obviously looking to coach someone else, but are you looking at players like, oh, I like her game, or I like his game, or
Sure.
oh, I don't think I could work with him? Are you thinking that sometimes in your head?
Absolutely. I mean, to an extent, I think I I feel like obviously in between pros and even when I have some weeks off, I do have always, even going back to Maria's days, I always will work with juniors a little bit when I have time, or I remember coaching Maria for years, and I'd work with like a 9-year-old girl at home who's actually a player now, Vivian Wolf. It's funny because she's actually ranked like 250 now or something, but I used to give her lessons when she was 9 to like 12, and I always felt like it was fun for me to kind of, when I had the time, of course, work with some other players and people, because it kept me sharp as a coach too, right? Like just different levels and different personalities, and I think for me, I feel like I could almost coach anybody, of course, because that's what you do when you have the different juniors. But I feel like my style of coaching and the success I've had with players kind of play similar to style to Katie or Ashlyn or Maria and Jesse even. And so definitely I have like I know I can help those type of players, and I feel like that's it makes it easier to kind of jump into the job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. I'm sorry if you lost my picture, but I'm still here.
Okay,
Um,
good.
yeah, don't worry. It's probably better you don't see me. So just going there with the youngsters, have you got a good eye for who you think could make a good player? Is it around the personality? Is it talent? Is it sort of family dynamic? What is it, do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, the for me, the first thing that I always look at, honestly, I mean, if I'm seeing a young player, obviously typically see how they play first, their game, right? So
Yeah,
that a lot of times would stand out first, just because before you even get to know the person, you kind of see how they play. Um, but I feel like after spending a few hours with the player or working with them, for me, I think it's super important how they're you can kind of gauge their passion for the game, right? So like if they really want to learn, if they're interested, I mean, they don't have to necessarily be like listening to every word you say, but they like really want to try and do it, and you'd be surprised. I mean, sometimes I'll run into kids who are good players,
yeah,
but then you kind of can tell like they're pushed into it, or they're kind of there, but they're not there. And so I find the passion. I mean, that was one thing with Jessie. Even when I started working with her when she was like 16 and 17, a lot of people didn't really know her yet. And I love the fact that she like really loved tennis. Like her and I would go watch matches together. She always had, and she'd even joke, she'd be like, I'm a lot smarter watching than I am playing and stuff, but like a lot of us are when we're young, because we're figuring things. And so I always loved the fact that she, wanted to get better and improve, and was like a student of the game. Um, with Maria, I loved her fight. Like I could play her. I used to play her sets when I was just off the tour or at the end of on the tour, and I could beat her like 6-1, 6-1 when she's 15, 16, and she would be trying till like you wouldn't know you were up 5-0. She'd be like killing to win a game, and like with that kind of competitiveness, I just knew she's going to be really, really good. So to me, it's kind of little things like that more than the actual strokes. And I do think with younger kids, you can kind of tell which kids like see the ball quick, or they have a good take. Like you could take younger kids and spin the ball, and some kids don't understand that, and then other kids right away pick it up, right? So like little things like that usually tell that they could be really good. So it's typical things like that that stand out to me. Everybody hits the ball different. Everybody has different grips, and a million different things. But those things to me really stand out. And I usually have a pretty good knack of like, if I can help somebody pretty quick, like, if I would have gone with Katie and like in a couple of days, I would have felt like, well, we might agree this is what you need to do, but if I can't get through to you to do it, then we're all wasting time, right? So that's you could sit there and say I'm successful with each player I work with, which I would say most of the time I am, but it's also I kind of know who I can help in a way, right? Like you have a better idea. And sometimes you surprise yourself, but I also feel like pretty quick you have a feeling like, okay, we can make this work. And you kind of just have a knack for like, yeah, it's probably going to be a good partnership. And so I think that's super important.
Yeah, very good. I wonder how much money motivates the players. It's kind of a vulgar topic because we don't talk about it, but a lot of people, sort of criticize Pegula and Navarro. Oh, well, they came from money. But I actually think, well, they came from money, so they don't need to be out there. They don't need to be doing, in my opinion, the hardest sport in the world, the sport that makes you feel terrible sometimes on court. Like, why am I doing this? And they're still putting in the effort. And to me, Pegula is playing some fantastic tennis. And she obviously has the self-motivation. Like you said, she loves it. But for the others, how much is money and the paycheck pushing them on?
Yeah, I think any really good player, obviously, I don't think when you're a kid and super young that you get into tennis because you want to make a lot of money. Maybe nowadays the families might think their kid's going to be number one and you're going to make all this money. But a young kid that's real, any good player now probably started really young. So most of the players played it because they liked it, or they were pushed into it, or they got good at it. Maybe they liked it because they got good at it, whatever. But I don't think the money really starts to come in until, maybe, I don't want to put an age, but, halfway through your development that you're like, oh, I could make a lot of money if I do this. But at the same time, I don't think, again, when you're like 14 or 15, you're working for that, right? So once you become really good and you're a pro, and then I think then it's people are more motivated by it, or they see kind of or they make decisions based on it. So with Jessie, she had different pressures. Like I used to always say, like she had the pressures of like other kids in her family were like doing normal stuff, going to normal school, like a normal kid. And then Jessie's like trying to, like you said, do something that's special. And her family kind of, since she was the one that was a real tennis player, she was kind of like the anointed one that was going to really go far in the family with sports. And, so there's pressure to that. And then your father's a billionaire that expects that you should, if you're going to play tennis, you should be number one. So that there's that pressure. Like, why are we doing this? Right. So, and then, so it's like certainly different types of pressures. And like you said, she could at 18 or 19 be like, I don't want to do this. It's too hard and I'm going to be fine for life. So I think it's a tricky thing, because I have coached players who I think early on, and I'm sure like Maria was, money was a big motivation for her when she was 17, 18, even younger, 15, 16, 17, whatever. But then once she started making a lot of money, Now, like, how much can you make, right? So again, like you see these Djokovic, what he's doing now. I mean, he's got all the money in the
Right.
world and he's still killing himself. So I think I think maybe at times during their career they're motivated by it at some point, but I also don't think that's like, yeah, the end of why they're really good, right? And I think kids that are motivated by that, or families, not necessarily going to make the right choices, on how to get
Yeah.
there. So I don't usually find that as too much of a motivator in a lot of senses, because I think if it is, you're not going to be great anyway. Because to be great, I think you have to just love the sport. You want to be your best version of yourself, and I think it's just kind of a byproduct of being
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the more I look into why players become fantastically good is because they simply love it. And you're told that, aren't you, as a youngster? Oh, you need to enjoy it. And I think sometimes you do. And obviously, winning is great fun, but losing is horrendous. And then you've got to love the life on tour. I'd love to know your motivation, because you're married, as you said.
Yeah.
You've coached unbelievable players, including Maria Sharapova, who won major titles and became world number one under you. You're away from your family an awful lot. What
Yeah.
keeps you going?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, certain things as I get older get tougher, and places I've been a million times when I was younger. You're going there for the first time, and you're like, "Oh wow, this is amazing." Then you're going back 30 times, and it's like, "Okay, I'm doing this again." Like I said too, like that. That's why I like. I think I know tennis well, and I love coaching. I don't necessarily love like the travel, and obviously like a lot of the tournaments are so big now, and the crowds and the people, and but I feel like I love the game of tennis. I love helping somebody get better, like that feeling of seeing somebody like improve, and their confidence go up. And sometimes it could be the smallest thing, but to see how even their whole like, I mean, not just with the pros and the juniors, when you put so much time and effort into something to be that good, it's a lot of your life and your personality and your happiness kind of go hand in hand with how you feel, and
Yeah.
sometimes the results. And in a perfect world, we wish it wasn't like that, but it's true. So to see like the kids get better, and to see even the pros I work with like having more success and kind of getting a spring in their step and confident, and see how they want it. The thing that really drives me is when players are improving. I don't care at any level, when they're improving, they always want to like, they get more motivated to do more, to practice more, to play more. And to me, that's like the ultimate, like, I know I'm doing a good job. I know I'm helping somebody become better when they like want to do more, right? They want to play more tournaments. They want to go, and you can kind of feel like their whole kind of attitude getting better. And it's, of course, it's not every single day, every single practice, but you can see it, that feel that as a whole. And to be part of that is kind of what drives me, I think, the most. Sometimes when I'm home, I can work with like a bunch of kids, and make some money, and do it, and I'm doing a good job, and I'm motivated. But it's also, you see somebody 1 hour, 2 hours the week, or 1 hour every 4 days, and you're helping them, but it's not the same as kind of when you're part of a team and part of having somebody
Yeah.
competing, especially at the highest level. It's like the ultimate, I think, for a coach, and especially a coach like me that's worked. I've done that for so long. It's like, I think
Yeah.
it's what I know best and do best.
Well, you certainly do best. I'm just looking at Katie's rankings. So she started the year in Auckland, ranked 112 in the world, and now she's ranked 64. And to somebody who doesn't know tennis, they might think, well, that's not that great. But anybody who knows tennis knows that in 3 months is incredible to get back into the world's top 70. What drives Katie, and how far do you think she can get?
Yeah, well, I think one thing I did like about her too over the years is I know her level is really high when she's playing a high level. Like she can pretty much play with anybody, and she can play. I mean, she's beaten some top players. She's won sets off of Swiatek and the best players, and so her high level is super high. And as a coach, that's kind of fun too, because
Yes.
you know, if there's one thing that's probably held her back a little bit over the years, have been injury, and then obviously like sometimes maybe the consistency, you know, where she could play a couple great matches and then throw in a bad match. So you, that's, you know, so you could coach a player who's really good and really solid, but and they might be super consistent, but like they'll get to a point where no matter what they do, they're going to just be overpowered, or they're going to be, they just don't have it, right, to, you know, to get past the quarterfinals. So it's exciting for me to think that when she's playing a super high level, that she can compete with anybody. And so I think the sky's the limit for her. I mean, if she continues to be consistent, what she's done the last few tournaments, she's I think she won at 1.8 matches in a row, and she's won maybe 10 out of her last 12 matches. So obviously, if she keeps being consistent, then her ranking is going to move up, and
Yep.
that's going to kind of take care of itself. But the prospects of her, I know her Grand Slam results aren't amazing. Like I've seen she's lost a lot of times in the second or third round, and like that's something she can improve tremendously on. I mean, having won four, I think she's won 4 or 5 titles, and you know, having that, sometimes to me, it's easier to get to the quarterfinals of a Grand Slam than it is to win a title. So some of that's luck, and it's like who you play and timing. But I think has easily a good another 4 or 5 years, and if she wants to do that, and I think when she plays well, she can play with anybody. So I'd like to see her go deep in a couple Grand Slams, and if she's very motivated, she works really hard, and she's super motivated, and so I feel like kind of the sky's kind of the limit. You know, I don't want to put a number on it, but I think she can do
Yeah.
really good things still. I think the best of her career could be in front of her for sure.
Great. Well, that's really good to hear. Have you ever worked with a British player, and what kind of association with the British Lawn Tennis Association have you had so far?
Well, I did work with Joe Conta for like a year. It was, I think, five or
Yeah,
six
of
years
course.
ago, and it's funny because Katie actually said when I was working with Joe, I was staying at the LTA a lot, and we actually practiced with Katie like a handful of times when she was, I don't, she was, Katie was probably 23 or 24, because I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was one of Conta's kind of not last year's, but maybe a year before she stopped or whatever. And we did pretty well together, and I enjoyed working with her. And it was a little bit tough with the me living in Florida, and her, she was in London all the time. She didn't want to leave England that
Yeah.
much, and so, and with Joe, it was a little different because she didn't have like hitting partners and as much in place. Katie has pretty good team in place, and she was kind of used to Billiana like not being with her every single week. Um, I feel like I mean, I know a lot of the coaches there. One thing Katie says that it kind of makes me feel good when she says it sometimes is like her coach growing up was Jeremy Bates, and that was like her main coach for many years. And Jeremy, like I played against him. I think he's like 10 years, I don't know, maybe 8 years or 10 years older than me. But like I grew up looking up to him kind of, and I remember when he was coaching Tim Henman, and because I'm the same age as Tim Henman, so we played a lot like in challengers and stuff. And so I remember Jeremy like being with him and coaching him. And she says that we coach very similar, and our personalities are kind of similar sometimes. So that's kind of cool, because sometimes she'll be like, "Oh my God, you're so much like Jeremy." I know Jeremy obviously was probably like her main coach, like, you know, in her development and growing up. So that kind of makes me feel good, because she was really successful with him. So I have and Beecher, Colin Beecher, like I played against him, and he's like hit with her a lot and helped her at times. So she's had a lot of like voices that I kind of like grew up with or played with. So that's kind of like cool for me to feel like that. I'm really looking forward to the whole grass court season. Obviously, that's the most important time, I think, for most British players.
Yes.
Katie plays well on grass, and she loves that time of year, and so she's really looking forward. So we're making the schedule so that I can be there the whole time for the grass, and you know, right after the French. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be fun. I like being with Joe during the grass season. I know it's a lot of pressure sometimes for the players, but I think that's cool. Like, I mean, as a player, you could feel like you have that pressure, but
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a lot better than nobody caring, right? So I think that's like a privilege to have that. So
Oh,
I'm really excited
totally.
during that time. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to feel, you can look at it both ways, but I thought it was cool with Joe having like the country kind of like backing us and stuff. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah, we go a bit crazy around Wimbledon, as you know. It's sort of all about Wimbledon and the British players, and you're going to have a lot of eyes on you, but you're used to that working with the players you have. So I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. I'd love to get your take on a few of the WTA players like Vicky and Boko and what you've thought of her. We had John Williams, former coach of Taylor Townsend, on a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he knew the family a little bit and he could tell when she was growing up, the standards were incredibly high. And she's just sort of soared so fast. It's
Yeah.
astonishing how good she is so
Yeah.
young.
Yeah, I seen her. Ashton played her a handful of times, even going back to the juniors. So I didn't really know her personally, but I knew who she was the last 4 or 5 years. I think Ashton played her in San Diego right before the Easter Bowl when Ashton was 16, and I think Vicky was probably 14 or 15. And you could tell that she had like a lot of firepower and great tools and a great athlete. And then last year when she started, I think the first time I'd seen her play for a while, she did okay in Rome. I think she beat somebody pretty good in Rome or played Coco 3 sets or something. I hadn't seen her in a while. And you could just tell, I mean, right now, the thing that I keep saying, and I think I'm pretty, with my experience, I feel like the top players of the game aren't dominating like they once did. And I feel like in some cases, maybe besides Swiatek and Sabalenka the last few years. I mean, Rybakina's been up and down, and she's playing great right now. But like, I don't feel like I feel like the right after those girls, it's wide open. Girls that are 5, 6, 7. Emma Navarre's top 10, and now she's 30, and then Andreeva's like they're all really good, but I feel like the depth in women's tennis is much deeper than it was 10, 15 years ago. But I don't really feel like the top players are like standouts like they were. So to
Yep.
have a player young like her like jump in and move up so fast. It's same like Noskova. People forget. I mean, Noskova is still really young. Her and Ashton are the same age, and I think Noskova is ranked number
Yeah.
12, right? So, you know, I feel like there's like 50 girls that can all like probably could move to top 10 or top 15. But I think what helps Maboko is like her attitude, like she believes she can, right? So when you're younger, sometimes you don't have
Yes.
like the restrictions that you have when you're 20, 29 or 30. And I think when you're young, like those girls feel like, not only are they good, people don't know their games totally yet. They're kind of playing fearless. Everything's new for
Yeah.
them. So it doesn't really surprise me to see somebody like her move up so fast. And she's a great player. So she's either going to be like top three and win slams, or she's going to be like, always, she might find it hard to back up that this year, right? Like sometimes the
Yeah.
second year, it's tough to kind of back up because people know how you play and all. So it doesn't surprise me to see some of these young girls moving up. It really doesn't. Like when they start to like, uh, and the sky's the limit. If they can keep, obviously, if they stay healthy, they have good people, or they can stay grounded. All of
Yeah.
that stuff is, I don't want to name names, but there's players obviously that have had great 1 years, right? Or they've won a slam and now they struggle because of that, right? So it's it makes tennis exciting for sure, women's tennis, especially right now.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm just looking at the live rankings. Vicky and Boko at the time of recording, we're in March 2026. And Boko is live number 9, Noskova's 13, Iva Jovic is number
Yeah, it's another
17. That's a
one,
career
right? Yeah,
high. Yeah, that's a
exactly.
crazy one. But then, of course, you've got Alina Svitolina, Michael, who's,
Right.
married mum of one now, and she's world number 8. And I personally would never have seen that coming before she took her maternity leave. I just didn't think she had the game, but she sort of reinvented herself. It's incredible.
She's kind of reinvented herself. I mean, I have always loved the way she plays. Just because I think, she's similar, always reminded me of Radwanska. she looks better. I mean, she plays better than she looks sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Or tougher to play. And obviously, I think she's,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
know, going
agreed.
for more now, like going for shots more, being more aggressive, probably. So the beauty about tennis, you can improve for many years, and obviously, if you know she's healthy and she's in great shape, so it's fun to see her, like you said, what she's doing now, and that's a great like an 18-year-old against a 35-year-old. Like it could be like a mother-daughter, right? It's such a wide range of ages
Yeah.
to see them doing good, which is kind of fun too. So I think again, I think it's a great time for women's tennis.
Brilliant. We're going to wrap this up, Michael, but just since you mentioned 38-year-old, let's quickly turn our attention to the ATP Tour side. And Novak Djokovic has just been beaten by Jack Draper in Indian Wells. But just your thoughts on Novak and his enduring career, which just seems like it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, he's doing. I mean, I've always loved Novak, and again, it's. I mean, one thing now you with the sports medicine and the trainers and how these athletes, the diets and the stuff they know now,
Yeah.
your career can be longer. And somebody like Novak has been amazing at that the last 20 years. So it doesn't surprise me that he's probably the best 38-year-old that's ever played, right? Like anything he's done. It's similar like the women, but I think those longer careers have a lot to do with how far we've come with sports medicine and training and diets and how to keep
Yeah.
add another 10 years to your career, basically.
Yeah, it's absolutely astonishing. So finally, where do we find you and what's your next plan?
Yeah, so we're going to Miami starts in a couple days. Katie's here. I'm home. I'm going to stay home during the tournament. So, but we're going out there this weekend to practice, and
Nice.
then after Miami, I'll have a couple weeks off, and then we'll start the clay season. I think we're going to start in Linz. There's 2 indoor clay tournaments in Linz and Stuttgart, which is fun because she likes to play indoors. So I think it's a good time to jump on the clay, especially during that indoor. And use indoors too to do it. So that's and then she'll play all the big ones, Madrid and French and so forth. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, exciting times ahead. I suspect Katie Boulter, with you in charge, Michael is going to have a phenomenal year. Let's just keep everything crossed that she can stay healthy. She's got a great team in place. Congratulations to you. And
Thanks.
thank you again for being so generous with your time. I just love having you on the podcast. So thank you, Michael Joyce, very, very much.
Anytime. Thank you, Candy. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
You're very kind. Don't say that because I'll be inviting you weekly. Thank you for watching Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. Please like, subscribe and share, and we'll be back soon with another great episode.